Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Russian President Vladimir Putin raises the stakes in the Ukraine conflict by calling up reservists and threatening to use nuclear weapons. Locally, 2 men have been jailed for 9 years each for raping a 14-year-old girl when she was drunk. And BioNTech vaccines for younger children are expected to arrive in Hong Kong next month. Russian President Vladimir Putin has raised the ante in his war against Ukraine, announcing a partial military mobilization and warning that he's willing to use all types of weapons if pushed. This came after Ukraine regained much of the Kharkiv region in the past 2 weeks. In a pre-recorded national address, President Vladimir Putin made it clear to Russians and the rest of the world that he has no intention of backing down. To protect our motherland, its sovereignty and territorial integrity, I consider it's necessary to support the Defense Ministry's proposal to partially mobilize Russia, he said. This means that in some parts of the country, reservists will be subject to conscription. The announcement comes ahead of planned referendums in 4 contested regions. Starting tomorrow, the self-proclaimed republics of Donetsk and Luhansk will hold a 4-day vote on whether to officially become part of Russia. Kherson and Zaporizhia will hold similar referendums. Putin vowed to do everything to provide safe conditions for the vote. He also accused NATO of conducting nuclear blackmail against Russia. He warned that he's willing to use all the means at his disposal to protect his country. This is not a bluff, he warned. Putin's escalation comes as Ukraine reclaimed much of Kharkiv, forcing Russian troops to retreat. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed Putin's threats and the referendums. In Hong Kong, 2 men have been sentenced to 9 years in jail each for raping a 14-year-old girl in her home. The victim has been living in a dormitory ever since the ordeal 3 years ago. Maisie Mock reports.
After deliberating for 2 hours, a high court jury found Zhang Wang-ho, aged 22, and 21-year-old Yun Ho Sum guilty of rape. The girl, who was referred to as X in court, was 14 years old when she was raped in April 2019. It happened after she became drunk and was escorted to her home in Tin Shui Wai by her former boyfriend and the 2 defendants. X was raped when the boyfriend went out to buy drinks. A report said X had symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and suicidal thoughts. She became sleepless and had an eating disorder which made her lose 1/3 of her weight. After the rape, X stayed in a dormitory and has not returned home. She only meets her grandfather, whom she used to live with, in malls. High Court Judge Anna Lai said a home is everyone's haven, but because of the rape, X has not dared to return home. As the man did not wear any condoms during the rape, the victim risked catching sexually transmitted diseases and becoming pregnant. These, the judge said, constituted aggravating factors which she took into consideration when sentencing. Lai said their sentence cannot be reduced as they did not show any remorse or plead guilty. She ordered that Zhang and Yun spend 9 years behind bars. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Police have recorded nearly 1,000 telephone scams involving $470 million in the first 7 months of the year. In a number of cases, fraudsters took advantage of COVID to frighten their victims. Chloe Feng reports.
Scammers have made use of the pandemic to pose as health officials and scare their victims into parting with their money.
喺今年嘅7月頭，我接到個自稱話衛生署。
One victim said someone claiming to be a Department of Health officer called her and said she had violated COVID rules. She wasn't suspicious as the caller had her full name and identity card number. She was then put through a Guangdong police station and lost her money after providing her bank details. Senior Superintendent Vincent Chang said there were 956 telephone fraud cases in the first 7 months of the year, up 60% from a year ago. The victims lost a total of $470 million, with the biggest single loss amounting to $65 million. Over 20% of the cases involved fraudsters pretending to be health officials. They netted over $231 million.
I think it is mainly because of the psychological reason. People may think they may get involved in the matters in relation to COVID. So they will think about the story presented by the fraudulence true.
Albert Au of the Center for Health Protection said fraudsters used pre-recorded voice messages and the same hotline numbers at the department, but there was a +852 code in front.
We will never ask the general public to provide any sensitive or information related to finance or bank accounts, credit card numbers, or any password. So whenever they receive any request for such information, these calls are very likely fraudulent calls.
Police arrested 173 people, with the youngest only 13, for telephone scams in the past months. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Daily COVID infections in Hong Kong are below 6,000 for the second consecutive day, with 5,687 cases today. A 2-year-old boy remains intubated and in critical condition in United Christian Hospital. Health officials stressed his complications are due to a high viral load and has nothing to do with a Sinovac jab he had. Meanwhile, authorities say the city's first monkeypox patient has been discharged from hospital. The health department announced that the monkeypox vaccination program for high-risk groups will begin on the 5th of next month. Bookings will open 2 days earlier. BioNTech vaccines for younger children are expected to arrive in Hong Kong next month. Experts, however, advised parents not to wait, but to have their children jabbed with Sinovac, which is already available. Here's Macy Mock again.
Only Sinovac vaccines are currently available for those aged between 6 months and 4 years. After weeks of trying to procure BioNTech jabs for children, the government has received an application from the manufacturer to supply the doses. A panel of doctors will scrutinize the application and advise the health minister. Government Pandemic Advisor Lau Yulong expects the manufacturer to send the vaccines to Hong Kong next month. He said the dosage of the BioNTech vaccine for children is 1/10 of the adult version. As of now, only 16% of children below the age of 3 have received one jab. Lau hopes that with the arrival of BioNTech shots, the vaccination rates for the youngest age group will rise to 50 to 60%. He added that both Sinovac and BioNTech jabs are effective. Meanwhile, pediatric immunology specialist Mike Kwan said parents should not wait until BioNTech jabs are available and should get their children vaccinated with Sinovac. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
4 people, including a doctor, have been arrested on suspicion of issuing exemption certificates for COVID jabs without having a medical consultation. The doctor and his 3 assistants were arrested last night at a clinic in Yau Ma Tei after an undercover police investigation. The suspects are believed to have issued about 200 certificates, with each one costing between $4,000 and $5,000. Police seized about $760,000 in cash from the clinic. 9 hotels are dropping out of the government's quarantine hotel scheme. A hotel sector representative expects more withdrawals if the government eases quarantine measures and adopts the 0+7 arrangement. Joanna Ho reports.
Wynna Chang, Association Manager of the Federation of Hong Kong Hotel Owners, believes that there will be more withdrawals from the designated quarantine hotel scheme if a 0+7 arrangement is implemented. Her comments came as two more hotels, Novotel Century Hong Kong in Wan Chai and Holiday Inn Golden Mile in Tsim Sha Tsui, decided to quit next month. A total of 68 hotels had joined the 8th round, which runs from August to October. However, 7 left before the cycle ends. Although another hotel joined, only 60 currently accept arrivals for isolation. Chan said business for quarantine hotels dropped, with the occupancy rate falling to 50% after the city adopted the 3+4 arrangement. She expects business to worsen, with more hotels opting out if a 0+7 regime is implemented. Chan said the arrangement would only encourage outbound travel, as arrivals from overseas who hold a yellow code during their 7-day medical surveillance are barred from restaurants and theme parks. She suggested moving to 0+0 gradually if 0+7 runs smoothly and the pandemic situation is stable.
We hope that there won't let backtrack of returning to 0+7 or even 3+4 arrangement. So I think the relaxation could be gradually.
The government has invited about 2,000 hotels to join the 9th round of the scheme, but only 61 have submitted applications. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Beijing says it's doing all it can to reunite peacefully with Taiwan, but warned separatists and external forces not to cross the red line. Ma Xiaoguang from the State Council's Taiwan Affairs Office said reunification will happen and promised the island a social system that is different from the mainland's. Beijing adopted a softer tone after weeks of military exercises around Taiwan, following the controversial visit of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It also came days after U.S. President Joe Biden said American forces would defend Taiwan should China invade. Beijing condemned Biden's remarks, while the White House insisted that the One China policy remains intact. Mainland and Hong Kong stocks have plunged as markets await the latest U.S. interest rate hike, with investors also jittery over Russia's first mobilization since the Second World War. Blue chips in Shanghai sank to a 4-month low. Healthcare and semiconductor stocks led the decline. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong dropped 1.8% to its lowest level in more than 6 months. Tech shares were the main losers. Alibaba slumped 3.7%, while food delivery giant Meituan lost 3%. A look at the markets now. The Hang Seng Index closed down 336 points. In top 10 active stocks, the Tracker Fund fell 33 cents, 10 cents down $7.40. Sunny Optical was down $10. AIA was down 35 cents. In foreign exchange rates, the euro is at 7.77, British pound 8.90. The city's financial and political elite have paid a final tribute to former banker Vincent Chang, who died last month at the age of 74. His funeral service was held at St. John's Cathedral on Garden Road this morning. Those who attended included Financial Secretary Paul Chan, former Chief Executive Donald Tsang, and former Chief Secretary Anson Chan. In a memorial statement, Chief Executive John Lee praised Chang for his services in the financial, public, and social services sectors. Chang was the first Chinese to become chairman of HSBC Asia Pacific. He was also a member of the Legislative and Executive Councils before the handover. Finally, the weather. There will be sunny periods tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 27 and 31 degrees. Expect some showers here and there on Friday and the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Good night.